Hi there, I'm Nigel Saunders, and you're about to enter the Bonsai Zone. For a couple of years now, I've been looking around for a toolbox to hold all my bonsai tools. And the metal ones, they're too hard, the tools will bang around in it, chip the cutting edges. You can get plastic ones, but they'll still rattle around and hit each other. You can get the roll-up cloth or leather pouches that you can put your tools in. That'll stop them rattling around and chipping, but you have to unroll it every time. Take your tools out. So when I came across this toolbox, I thought this is the answer. What I ended up getting was a Linesman Toolbox. It's used by electrical people, and it's got all kinds of pockets and pouches to hold all my tools. I'll give you a quick tour of the toolbox. On this side, you have 3 outer pouches, one with a Velcro top, and 3 inner pouches for carrying larger tools. On the inside you have quite a space. You can fit wire, you can fit all kinds of bonsai tools in here, brushes, whatever you want. I've got pouches on this side that I have my pruners, some of my bonsai scissors, a lot of ones I haven't used yet over here. On this side I have a set of scissors on these loops. I've got my bonsai tools on the inside here. They're well protected. On this side there's a pouch that you can carry stuff in, which is kind of handy. You could carry seeds or labels or whatever you want. On this side I've got again 3 more outer pouches and 3 inner ones. So I've got my root hooks, my spatula, my spoons, my root rake on this side. On this side there's a place for a toolbox, so you can configure this toolbox however you want. You can take out the little sliding separators and you could fit tools in there too if you wanted. So that's just held in with a Velcro strap in that pouch. Yeah, so that's a quick tour of my Linesman Toolbox. I'm quite happy with it. I think it'll work great. Today I'll be doing some midsummer work on my Avatar Grove. This grove is inspired by the Avatar Grove at Port Renfrew in BC, in British Columbia, Canada. The trees in this grove are planted on a hillside to resemble the Avatar Grove. I'm starting the work on this forest by looking at the distance view of the forest, so I'm standing back and looking at it. And you can see its main composition is an asymmetrical triangle. That could be trimmed up a bit, but the basic composition, I like it. It looks good from the distance. What makes the main tree look large in this composition is that the other trees are tall and slender. In an old growth forest, you'll see most of the trees are vertical. Trees that are on angles don't survive. They have to shoot straight up and get the light at the top of the forest. On this planting, some of the seedlings aren't quite vertical. They're growing on a slight angle, so I'll want to correct that. Even the main tree is on a slight angle, so I'll want to correct that also. So I want all the trees to be as vertical as I can get them. The first work I'll do on the forest is to prune up all the younger trees to make them compact and triangular shaped. So here I go. As these trees get larger, I'll be pruning away more and more of these lower branches so you can see the trunks clearly when viewed from the front. As I'm pruning up the trees in the forest, I'm always keeping in mind what scale the forest is, how high I imagine a person to be walking through the forest floor. This helps me determine what branches to remove and which ones to keep. After I've done scissor pruning the trees to shape, I then go in and finger pinch the ends of the branches to keep them compact and neat. Pruning them to a rounded profile. As I prune away the lower branches, you can see more and more of the forest floor, which is really nice. You can see the moss and the hill. So I'm just, slowly working away at the planting, removing moss from some of these lower trunks. In order for this tree to grow up vertically beside the main tree, I'll have to remove a branch. And this one right here, it's kind of in the way of this tree. They kind of intersect each other. I have two branches growing from almost the same spot here on the trunk. So I've always wanted to remove one of these branches. I never knew which one, so now I know because I need room for this tree to grow. So I'm going to cut this off, leaving a bit of a stub here. So here I go. So the branch that's left over, the dead branch, will sort of match the one that's on the other side. So I'm going to leave it about the same length for now. To about here. There we go. There's the foliage off that one. That now gives this tree room to grow here, so it's not being blocked out by branches, so it's got its own spot of sunlight there. A bonsai forest like this evolves over time. The pieces start to fit together like jigsaw puzzles. The branches go on the outside of the tree where it gets the sun, and all the trees start to look really natural together. They go together really nicely, and it takes time to get this. The next thing I want to work on in the forest is I want to straighten out the main tree. Right now it's on a bit of a slant, so I want to straighten it out so it's nice and vertical. To do this, I'm going to lift the entire forest out of the pot and put soil underneath it on this side. I'm going to try and lift the forest out now. Hopefully it'll come out in one piece. There we go. The roots look in good shape along the soil here. Everything looks healthy. I don't see any problems. Doesn't look root bound, looks really good. When I initially planted this forest, it was flat, and then I decided to tilt it up on an angle to get the hill. So I added a lot of gravel into the bottom of the pot to do that, so I wouldn't waste my bonsai soil. I've got lots of bonsai soil mixed up now, so I'm going to replace these rocks with bonsai soil. It'll also make the planting a little lighter. My helpers today are the 4 new ducklings and their mother there. I'm filling my seed tray pot up with my bonsai soil now. I'll try and get the soil angle perfect so my main tree's vertical. I'm going to fit the forest back in the pot now and make any adjustments I need to the soil level. The tree's back in its pot, and the main trunk is vertical. It's vertical from the front view, and also from looking in from the side, it's also vertical. So that's the position I wanted. But the planting's a little bit too high in the pot. You can see in this corner here, it's sticking up about this far. So I've got to remove my soil by about the same amount, so it drops down nicely into the pot, but keeps the main tree vertical. So out comes the forest again to make further adjustments. I'll remove about that same amount all over, so the planting drops down the right amount. I think I'm going to try it about there. So I still have it high at the back, but I took a lot off the front. So back in the forest goes. Seems to be sitting down better. The tree's back in the pot. So I'm just making sure it's all settled in. The bottom of the soil has to kind of adapt to the new terrain that's underneath it, the new soil that I put in. You gotta make sure it's nice and firm. Seems quite good. Now let's see if it's still vertical, the main tree. And I think it is. That looks really good. Yeah. Big improvement. That's been bothering me for a long time. Yeah, I like that. That's Sweet Pea walking around in front of the forest. Hello. Hi. Hello. Hi. How are you? What a good girl. You gonna hop down? There you go. Bye-bye. I've got the forest firmly planted down on top of the new soil. So I'm gonna trim all those excess roots that are sticking up over the top, and then I'll give it a good watering. I'll just come in with my medical scissors. I sharpen these. I get them at the surplus store for about $2. And I sharpen them to a really sharp edge. And they work really well for trimming roots and all that kind of stuff. Where you don't want to use your really good bonsai tools, because pruning things with soil on them will dull your tools really quickly. So I'm just trimming off these excess roots sticking up here. There's a few around the side here, and a few around the back. Not too many. That looks good. Alright, I'll give it a good watering. Make sure all that new soil I put underneath gets thoroughly soaked. So this type of repotting is called slip potting, where you just slip it out of one pot and you can either put it in another pot or the same pot. It doesn't hurt the roots at all. There we go. I've got the main tree straightened up now, so my next job will be to straighten up all the other trees. Straightening the other trees can be done a couple of ways. You can stick a wire down into the ground, into the soil, wrap it around the trunk, and then bend it into a straight position. Another method is to use a wire around the main trunk as a support, bring the wire around this small trunk, and bend it into position. So it's like a guy wire. I'll try both methods. Some trees will get the wire into the soil, and others I'll try bracing it to the main tree. So here I go. I'm going to stick it into the soil close to the trunk, trying to find a spot in the root base that the wire will pass through without damaging the roots. There we go. So that's down to the bottom of the pot now. I'll wrap my wire around the trunk now. The advantage of this method is that if there's any kinks in the trunk, it allows you to straighten them out, so you can get that nice tall vertical look to the trunk. The disadvantage of this method is if you leave the wire on too long, you'll get a spiral scar going up the trunk of your tree, which will take a long time to grow out. So I'm just bringing the wire up around all the branches, making sure I don't trap any branches underneath the wire. So I'm continuing the wire right up to the apex of the tree. I think that'll do. So I'm going to see now if I can straighten the tree up, if this works or not. I'm just having a look at the planting from the front here. I got a bit of a curve to that trunk, the slender trunk. I'll try and fix that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think I'm happy with that. Before I start straightening all the other trunks, I'll finish pruning up all the trees, getting them short and compact. Removing all those lower branches and slowly getting them sorted out. It is starting to get dark out, so I'll probably have to continue the video tomorrow morning. But I'll get as much done as I can tonight. Now this tree, I'm looking for an apex here to continue growing it vertically. I'll have to get rid of this branch. It's more of a horizontal branch. And I'm going to keep this one as the apex, even though these other two were stronger, but they're just not going vertically. So we'll prune them off. Again, on this tree, I've got to pick a main leader. I've got a choice of two branches here. So I want to pick the one that's the most vertical and most vigorous, which is this one, so I'm going to remove this other one. There we go. It is possible to develop a twin trunk, but I want to keep them simple. I don't think we need any twin trunks in this forest, or trunks dividing into two. Still working on removing some of these lower branches so we can see the trunk lines. There's my little lookout point I had here. Well, it's starting to get dark out. The camera can see better than my eyes right now. So I'll just give you a quick pan through the Avatar Grove, and I'll start working on it again tomorrow. Good morning. It's day 2 in the bonsai zone. I'm starting my day with a nice long walk in the woods. I try to always start my day with a nice long walk. I'll walk for an hour to an hour and a half each day in the morning. Bonsai isn't just growing your trees, it's also about growing yourself. You'll grow your skills, your eye for balance and composition, your eye for a good bonsai tree. So it's a journey both with yourself and your trees. A walk in nature, you never know what you'll see. Beautiful flowers, animals. Sometimes the best textbook for learning bonsai is just to get out in nature and study the trees. I've just turned 55 this year, so I'm hoping to live to 100 and grow old with my trees. After a wonderful walk in the forest, it's time to head back home and resume work on the Avatar Grove. I'm going to begin day 2 by cleaning up the lichen on the trunk of the main tree. It's getting a little too thick and it's obscuring the bark. So I'll just scrub it with a toothbrush and get most of it off. You can see the true bark color now coming through. So I'm going to have to clean way up into the tree and get it all cleaned up. I've got the trunk of the main tree cleaned up now, so you can see the nice red color. It really contrasts nicely with the green foliage. So next I'm going to clean up the root base on the tree, getting all the moss off the surface roots so we can see this spread nicely. I'll get my toothbrush in there. Scrub away too to get the moss and lichen off the roots. That'll help give it that feeling of an old tree. The root base is all cleaned up and I'm really happy with it. I can imagine myself walking around the base of this tree and looking up at it. I'm going to continue cleaning up the foliage on the trees now. I've got all the smaller trees pruned up now, so now it's time to tackle the main tree. I'll prune the top up to look like an old growth cedar. On an old growth cedar, each upright trunk is almost like a mini tree. That's how I'll be styling each of these upright branches or trunks to look like a little mini tree all around the main trunk. So here I go. Each upright branch will have an apex and horizontal branches coming off the main leader. Here's a shot of the progress so far. I'm still working away at the apex of the tree. I'm trying to shift some of this mass off this side to keep the apex more over the center of the trunk line. I'm doing a lot of thinning out as I work on the tree, making sure you can see each branch clearly, make it nice and compact with the central leader. I'm removing a lot of this hanging growth. I've got the top of the tree almost pruned up. I'm sure I'll be refining it in the next few days as I examine it closely and find little things that can be improved. I'm going to go on and straighten up some of the other trunks that are growing in the forest. I'll use the same technique and straighten up a couple of these trees in the back here. The rest of the trees aren't too bad. I think they'll kind of straighten themselves over time too. My final step for today will be to rough in the pathways. I had a trail coming around the main tree, kind of up some rocks here, and out to my lookout point in the middle of the forest here. All those rocks I had there, the birds, when they were kicking the moss off, kicked the rocks out of the planting also. So I'm going to rough in the pathways first with some sand as a starter, and then we'll go from there. I just use regular playground sand. It's just a washed sand that's safe for kids to play in. So I'll pour it out into a cup here. And then using a spoon, I'll start applying the sand to my pathways. And this is just to rough them in. And then I'll add stones and interesting details. You don't have to have a pathway in a forest, but it adds a lot of interest. It gives the eye somewhere to travel. It's almost like going on a little journey. The closer you get your landscape to a nice miniature forest, the more interesting it is for the viewer. It takes them on a journey through a miniature world. So you can see at the front here, I'm going to have to put some stones to build up the pathway so people could walk on it. I've got an assortment of miniature rocks or gravel, and I'm going to try placing them around the front here to try and build up a bit of a rock ledge so someone could walk down this pathway. There's one stone left over from last time. I'm just wetting my sand to see how it's looking. Not too bad. Looks like a person could walk along here now. Kind of climb down the hill here. I'll need a few stone steps in here to kind of make it a little easier to walk. Here's a shot of the landscape now. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think that's probably going to be it for this forest for now. As it gets closer to show time, and if I decide to put this in our bonsai show, I'll be doing more work to it, refining it, pruning the moss, getting all the details really nice. Here's a shot of the landscape. And the giant trees. That's all the work I'll be doing on the Avatar Grove for this video. So now it's time for today's update. Today's update is my 3 donated lemon tree bonsais. These 3 trees got quite a severe pruning last time. I reduced them down to their kind of bare structure, and they've just been let to grow since then. The lemon tree that I made into a semi-cascade, the big pruning scar is healing really nicely, and I think it'll make a really nice tree someday. The tall, skinny lemon tree is also growing nicely, getting a nice crown on top. The largest of the lemon trees is also growing really nicely, and it'll make a really nice tree someday. It's time now for today's viewers' picks. Today's viewer picks are sent in by Bill from Pennsylvania, USA. He's got a collected honeysuckle and a common privet. That's all for today. So Nigel Saunders in the Bonsai Zone. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.